I remember asking the question, where all the black folks at? And the answer I get most of the time is Atlanta. They in ATL, bro. That's where all the black folks is, right? Okay, I get it. City, ATL, a lot of black people. But what states do most black people live in? I get curious sometimes. I have these little bouts of curiosity. Want to find out the answer. So I do a little research. Where do all the black folks live? What are the top 5 states in population when it comes to black people? Well, guess what? Figure that one out. Let's take a look. So to find out which states have the most black people living there, I took a look at the U.S. Census data. In addition to that, I took a look at a Pew Research study that tabulated results. And in the end, I was able to come up with the answers that I needed for the question that I had. Now, granted, this data has come a long way since back in the day. Every 10 years, they do a census, right? Once upon a time, there were 2 categories on the census. There was free and slave. Free, slave. They didn't even say what color slave was. You're just a slave, right? So over time, the data's gotten more and more accurate, So now we fast forward to today, and we think okay, you got black folks, you got white folks, you got Hispanic folks. It's a little different than that because the black category is not just one category. There's subcategories of black. Black is just not black, right? So what do I mean by that? You have black people who claim to be black single race. I'm just black. That's what I am. I'm black, right? Then you have interracial blacks, right? Interesting. Interracial is a subcategory of black. If you know why that is, let me know in the comment section below. But anyhow, if interracial, this means black person who's mixed with black and non-black, other than Latino or Hispanic. And then you have black Hispanics, black folks that are mixed with Hispanic, so they're black Hispanic, all black, single race, interracial, black Hispanic, just so you know. All right, so then when you're talking about black people, it's important to define what the census data categorizes black people as. And I think it's interesting to know how black people define themselves. What do you call yourself? Are you black? Are you mixed? Are you black with something else? You got Indian in your family? So you got some good hair because you got Indian in your family? How do you see yourself? Because this is all about self-identification. That's the key word. Self-identification means how you identify yourself. Case in point, do you remember a woman named Rachel Dolezal? Rachel Dolezal was white, but she identified as black. Right? So much so that she like all up in, I think, NAACPs and stuff. She like leading black folks as a black person. Anyhow, she identified as black, so that means she's black because she identified as black. Right? So it's all self-identification. The only thing that's missing is if you don't identify in certain surveys that are taken, then somebody else identifies you based upon what they see or what they think, based on what they see. So anyhow, moving forward, top 5 states with black folks. Let's go down the list. So what I'll do is I'll give you the overall, and then I'll give you the breakdown based upon these subcategories. How many of these subcategories? And then some of the 5 states stay the same, and then you have some new states that come into the play. But first off, Texas, my birth state, Texas, where I was born, Texas. But it's kind of obvious why Texas would take the #1 spot, because Texas is like the 2nd largest state in the country behind Alaska. And it's probably not too hard to figure out why Alaska doesn't have a high population of people like Texas does, for one, but especially black folks. Let's see. All right, so Texas is #1 on the list as far as population goes. In black population, it's also #1 in the single race category of black people who say that they're black. So the population is 3.9 million black folks in Texas. 3.9 million. Single race blacks, people who just claim to be black, that number in Texas is 3.4 million. And let's see, Texas, interracial. Texas moves down to 2nd place with 250,000 people claiming that status. and it falls to the 4th place in Black Hispanic. These black people or Hispanics, they call themselves blacks who call themselves Hispanic. Black Hispanic, Texas is 4th place with 210,000 people claiming that. But overall, black population, Texas is number 1 with 3.9 million black people in the state of Texas. Number 2, my home state, Florida, where I live. Wonder what's up with that. One of the most populous living. Number 2, Florida. Florida has 3.8 million black folks. 3.8 million black people. Let's double check the data of my survey here. This was 2019 census, so it's recent. 3.8 million black folks in Florida. As far as single race, Florida's still in the top 5, in 3rd place with 3.3 million. Interracial, Florida's in 3rd place, 245,000. And Black Hispanic, Florida moves up to 2nd place with 260,000 people claiming the Black Hispanic status in Florida. But overall, Florida is the 2nd most populous state for blacks in the country with 3.8 million people. So let's move on to number 3. Number 3 is the one that if I hadn't known better, if I hadn't looked at the statistics, I would have thought was the number 1 spot. But number 3, Georgia. I think density-wise, Georgia probably takes the cake, but it's just not as big of a state as like a Texas would be. So Georgia falls in the number 3 spot of black population. The number there is 3.6 million black folks. 3.6 million black folks in Georgia. So also for single race, Georgia actually moves up above Florida. It takes the number 1 spot of black people who just call themselves black. I remember back in the day, I hadn't been to Atlanta. I used to ask questions about Atlanta, and everybody would always say Atlanta's the black Mecca. And every black man needs to go to Atlanta. You need to check out Atlanta. So yeah, that's when I was coming out of school, that's what the thought process was. Everybody was going to, it's like half my hometown moved to Atlanta, Georgia. Been up there a few times. I like Georgia. Georgia's chill. I like the state for the most part. Yeah, I enjoy Georgia. But Georgia takes the number 3 spot overall, the number 2 spot single race. Now, when we get into interracial, those who self-identify as interracial, Georgia falls completely out of the top 5. They're not in there. Also, as far as Black Hispanic, Georgia falls out of the top 5. So Georgia's only in the top 5 black population for overall black population and single race black population, or black folks who just identify themselves as black, period. We deep black, Georgia. Yeah, Georgia real black. Number 4 is New York. New York, 3.4 million black folks in New York. This is the state of New York, not New York City, the state of New York. 3.4 million black folks. As far as single race is concerned, New York maintains the 4th position there. There's 2.8 million. Now look at the difference between these numbers. You got overall black population in New York, 3.4 million. Single race black population in New York, 2.8 million. That's a 600,000 difference. So what does that tell you about New York? You'll find out here in a second. As far as people in the interracial category, self-identifying as interracial in New York falls to the 5th position with 206,000 people. But when we move over to Black Hispanic, game changer. New York, number 1. New York has the most people that identify as Black Hispanics at 450,000 people. Now, the last state in the top 5 for black population in the United States of America is California. California. Some say they know how to party, but California is the number 5 state for black population with 2.8 million black folks in California. 2.8 million black folks in California, according to 2019 U.S. Census. As far as single race, just like New York, Cali there's a big difference there. As far as black folks in California claiming single race, California falls out of the top 5. They fall out of the top 5, big as California is. And you don't see it again until you get to the interracial category. Once you get interracial with blacks who self-identify as interracial, California is back in the top 5. The number 1 position, interracial, 350,000 people self-identify that way. So as far as people who claim interracial black, California is the #1 state. So New York would be #1 for Black Hispanics. California is #1 for interracial. And then you have the Black Hispanic category. California's in the top 5 there. It's just down at the #3 position with 240,000 people self-identifying as Black Hispanic in California. So what changed in the top 5? Who was not in the top 5 in the overall category, but entered the top 5 in one of those other categories? Let's take a look at the single race Black category. People who claim I'm just Black. California fell out of the single race, but they were replaced by North Carolina. North Carolina is 5th as far as population goes for Black folks who just claim to be Black, period. They just self-identify as Black. Not I got, this in my family, I got this, and it's just, I'm Black. So North Carolina enters the top 5 in the 5th position with 2.2 million people who claim to be just Black. The interracial category, the new entrant in that category, who fell out? Texas, Florida, Georgia fell out. Yeah, Georgia was not in that. But interracial, non-Hispanic, so a mixed, but I'm not Latino or Hispanic. The Ohio. Apparently, there's a lot of swirl action in Ohio, not like with Latino or Hispanic. So it's either Blacks and whites or Blacks and Asians. I don't know. I'm not from Ohio. Something that worth looking into. I'll check. Definitely, I'm curious now. So I'll definitely check out the stats just to see what's going on there. It'd be an interesting question to get an answer to. But Ohio moves into the top 5 as far as the interracial category. Anybody here from Ohio? Let me know what's going on in Ohio. Why that number is the way that it is. And then in the Black Hispanic category, it was New Jersey that entered the top 5. So something up there in that area, New York, New Jersey, that area, the Northeast, something going on, but Jersey pops into the top 5 as far as population. And think about it now, Jersey's not, compare the size to like Jersey and Texas. And Jersey is in the top 5 as far as Black Hispanics. A lot of people up in that area claim the Black Hispanic status. So what is that? It just shows how diverse the Black population is, Black people are. You can't just say, describe a Black person and think that you can describe, and really you can't do that with anybody, right? But we see it so often in the Black community, how we try to describe them with this little description, but there's just so much going on. There's so many different environments, so many different subcultures. It's actually pretty interesting. Now that's changing with technology. Things are coming together. More people are seeing the same thing at the same time. So it's getting harder and harder to identify where somebody's from based upon the things they like or what they do or how they talk. It's just all coming together. But those are your top 5 states as far as population with Black folk. So overall population, let's run it down one more time. Top 5 states: #1, Texas; #2, Florida; #3, Georgia; #4, New York; and #5, California. Those are your top 5 states in Black population. This has been Black Statistics. I'm your host, Dr. Sherman Rivers. See you on the next one. Peace.